So I watched a video by Chris McFeely, who's like a big Transformers fan who went over the different drafts this movie went through. And apparently, at one point, Blur was supposed to be a Jimmy Stewart type.
A Jimmy Stewart type?
Yeah.
Well, that just sounds like a terrible idea.
I don't have your Energon, Ultra Magnus. It's in RC's house and Springer's house.
Well, that's just a wild situation.
That's insane.
Welcome to Certain POV's Another Pass podcast with Case and Sam, where we take another look at movies that we find fascinating but flawed. Let's see how we could have fixed them.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Another Pass podcast. I'm Case Aiken, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Sam Alisea.
Hi.
Hey Sam, would you say that this show is more than meets the eye?
Absolutely. I love it. I love this show. We are more than meets the eye. We're great. Just like the movie we're discussing.
Yes, that's right, because today we are talking about the 1986 Transformers movie. And to have that conversation, we are joined by Nic Woolfe.
Ba weep grana weep ninny bong.
Ba weep grana weep ninny bong.
Ah, ba weep grana weep ninny bong.
Ah! Thank you for leading with that. I actually was planning on saying that as my opening earlier, and then I forgot to do it when we actually started recording. So thank God someone remembered to say it. So today we're talking about the Transformers movie. Before we get into that conversation, Nick, you've been on the show before, but why don't you remind the listeners who you are and where people can find you?
I can be found around I was going to call it the Another Pass Discord. No, the Certain Point of Me... No! Certain Point of View Media Discord. It's been a day.
It has been a day. But hey, we're talking about Transformers now, so that's great.
Yeah, and I've talked about the Power Rangers 2017 movie, and I've talked about the Godzilla 2019 King of the Monsters Monsterverse movie.
Yeah, so you have a habit of bringing movies. Yeah, they're fun times, but you have a habit of bringing movies that I like for this conversation.
Yes.
I have a habit of picking movies that are very marketable and full of toy opportunities.
For real, these are all extremely toyetic, and none more so than the Transformers movie. Let's be honest here. There's a big reason this movie got made, and that was to market new toys. And there's a big reason that things happen in this movie, and that was to stop marketing old toys. And that's just a thing that we're going to be chatting about when we talk about the Transformers movies. But I am curious, because I grew up with this movie. I grew up with the Transformers series in general. I've got a lot of love for the Transformers franchise, and I'm curious where the rest of y'all fall in terms of that. For me, it was a show that was on in syndication all the time when I was a kid. I couldn't even tell you like where I first saw it. It was just regularly available. And the VHSs of the pilot were available at my local video store, pre-Blockbuster at that point. So I watched a lot of the G1 season 1 Transformers and season 2, and then this movie takes place between season 2 and season 3. So I had a lot of interest in watching it. I distinctly remember when I saw this movie. It wasn't in theaters, but it was shortly after, like right when I came home to home video. Or probably not right when I came home to home video, because this was 86 and I would have been 2. So I was probably like 4 or 5 is what I'm getting at here. And I remember being so excited to see this movie, and then it started and being extremely confused by quite a bit of it. For starters, the box art for this movie, which I believe was the poster for the movie, features Ultra Magnus, and I was like, "Oh, is that the movie version of Optimus Prime?" And that was where my confusion began. And then we have the opening scene with Unicron, and it just goes from there. But Sam, as my co-host on this one, what is your history with the Transformers franchise?
Oh, so I watched the Transformers a lot. Like, I watched all the Transformers. I loved all of them. I just, it was always like on in my house. I owned a lot of Transformers. I didn't see this movie in the theaters, but I definitely did see it on VHS tape when it came home. I liked really any robots, to be honest with you. I was a robot kid. I think that most kids born in the 80s, there's a lot of robot stuff going on. I mean, Johnny Five, anything in Star Wars. So robots were definitely hip. And Teddy Ruxpin. Like, I liked robots. I liked animatronic things. I loved the Dinobots. Later on, when I was older, I liked Beast Wars. Like, this is right up my wheelhouse. And I love this confusing film. Yes, it's kind of like a music video with just lots of fights in it, but I don't care, and the soundtrack is rad, and I love this movie so much. I just love it so much, guys.
Oh, that's always a good position to be going into a conversation about how we could have fixed it. No, I'm with you. I have a deep love for this movie. Nick, how about you?
All right, so interestingly enough, I was born too young for this movie. I grew up with Beast Wars, and like Beast Wars is already such a very high bar when it comes to Transformers, in terms of like character, storytelling, etc. Like Dinobot.
Yeah, I'll note that I grew up on Transformers G1, but Beast Wars is by far my favorite Transformers property.
Mm-hmm. Like it got to the point where sometimes I would get a Transformer for my birthday, and it was like, why is this like a truck or something? Why is this a yellow truck? I don't know what to do with this. Like I tried getting into Transformers Armada, I couldn't do it. Even though I got like one of the one that was a helicopter. I don't know. And when it came to movies, like the first Michael Bay one was the one that came out, and I think it was that kind of made me more aware of the old G1 series. I remember, like, what really made me curious was like this YouTube video of this song called like "The Ballad of Optimus Prime," which was basically stayed in my head to this very day. Like go search on YouTube for like "Ballad of Optimus Prime" if it's still there. Like there's a lot of stuff that's not on there from 20 years ago.
Oof.
But yeah, I believe it was like a few months ago, there was the channel, I want to say Pointless Hub, who has done a retrospective on all the Transformers movies, starting with the Bay movies and then going into Bumblebee, and then Rise of the Beast, and then this movie, and then Transformers 1. And watching Transformers 1, not Transformers, watching his video on both this movie and G1 as a whole, it just made me curious to actually sit down and finally watch the movie, because I've seen a few of the episodes. I saw the 3-episode pilot for Transformers. I saw the Return of Optimus Prime. I just jumped straight to the end there.
Oh.
I was like, how does he come back? And there's a bunch of that I know of but haven't seen. Like I know there's one episode where Merlin's involved. I know there's one episode where the Decepticons teach kids how to make gunpowder. I know There's one where Optimus Prime gets torn apart and then gets rebuilt as a crocodile and becomes Croctimus Prime.
I don't remember that one, but I distinctly remember the gunpowder one because I still have the recipe memorized from that episode.
Ooh. Yikes.
Mostly because they relied on bird poop to get the potassium nitrate needed for it, and that I always just remember Starscream being covered with bird shit.
But yeah, knowing the story of this movie going in, how could I forget Lindsay Ellis's video on Transformers the movie, and basically what it was like watching it. Not before that, watch the animated one where it's like she's just horrified by all the sudden death that's happening, like with Unicron and Megatron killing the G1 cast, and it's like, that was too easy, and she's like, I'll say, and it's like, death count billion 1, billion 2. Such a great video. But yeah, going into this movie knowing the story, I was like, it's interesting. Like, I'm obviously more invested in the first third than the rest of it, but it's still fun. It's still got great music, like Sam said.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like Weird Al. So there.
Yeah. Well, and You mentioning the first third versus the rest. I was thinking about that I was doing a small rewatch before we started recording, and I got through the first act, and I was thinking about how that functions pretty well as a standalone like episode of Transformers. It's a brutal like season finale level of Transformers, but it does function pretty well in terms of just being like, this is the stuff you know about the Transformers TV show, and just more of it on screen.
Yeah.
Particularly the violence, way more of the violence on screen.
I just want to.
And then it kind of pivots from there.
I was going to say I want to address the body count of the 80s because this is not something that only happens in Transformers. I don't know. It's just died a lot in cartoons in the 80s and early 90s. It's kind of it wasn't as sanitized, so I just wanted to defend Transformers on killing off half the cast. It's something that happened often. Kids learn to be sad in safe environments often. Or not so safe environments. Never-ending story, Land
I
Before
wanna say-
Yeah, I was always
Time.
reference the never-ending story on that
constantly
one.
traumatized his children.
I want to say there's like at least one story of a kid locking himself in his room because he was just traumatized by Optimus Prime dying.
I mean, it was a big deal. It stayed with me for a long time. It's honestly the Bay movies that have sort of like calcified my like interest in Transformers as a general property, and has made it difficult for me to be quite as invested in all the additional parts of the franchise. But yeah, when Optimus Prime dies initially in this movie, that's a big deal, and it's sad. Like he goes out with a blaze of glory and then gets to have like a heartfelt goodbye to his friends, and gives up the what I mean, in the conversation about this movie, we're gonna have to like ignore like all the later stuff, because it's not like the spark with the Matrix in it. It's just the Matrix of leadership, and all those kind of things. We don't have to like deal with the whole like, Starscream's spark doesn't die
Right.
kind of component, because that's just a later retcon.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like that first third, you have all the characters you love, and most of them die. But like it's such a wonderful like high production quality version of these characters in a lot of spots. That's really nice to see. And then we get a very different movie after that.
Yeah, it does kind of feel tacked on, even though I love it.
It's just that the pacing is weird. And part of that is, and let's talk about this. The reason why there's so much death in this is that this movie was designed to bring out a brand new line of Transformer toys, and specifically to bring out new Transformer toys that had a very different aesthetic to the pre-existing ones. And the pre-existing ones were no longer being sold. So it was a scenario of trying to roll out like this whole new roster for people to buy, while at the same time cleaning house of all the detritus that people had already purchased.
You thought you could sneak by that rollout by me, but you couldn't.
You got that.
Yep. Very perceptive, if you will.
Oh man, Perceptor was always one of my favorites. I'm always a sucker for like the nerdy character in a cartoon. And this was my introduction to Perceptor, because he's not a big character in the first two. Like he's in season 2, but he's not a huge character in the earlier stuff. But I loved him.
I'm trying to remember who voices him, because the guy who voices Perceptor also voices someone in the first Metal Gear Solid game. I just forget who.
Paul Eating. No, Perceptor was a lot of fun. This was a good rollout for a lot of, and there I go again, a lot of characters who had appeared previously in the show, but I hadn't actually like registered, because they're not big parts of season 1, and there's just so many Transformers. Like the cast is gigantic, but like Perceptor and I was about to say Boomer, but that's not the name. What's the Soundwave equivalent?
Blaster,
yes. Both of those like popped out to me. Blaster, because Soundwave is so goddamn cool.
Yeah.
That having an Autobot version of that was just like awesome to me, because Soundwave, like between the weird voice and the no mouth face design, and the fact that it can pop out cassettes that turn into robots that are human size, was always just like such an awesome thing. And the fact that they finally had a hero version of that, I was like, yes,
Finally, a good guy. I love the Dinobots too, especially Grimlock. He's got lots of attitude in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Love us a robot dinosaur.
Yeah, it's such a combination of all the things we love, robots and
Who
dinosaurs.
wouldn't love them?
The Dinobots are great.
Yeah. Like the name of the show escapes me, but I swear in like the 2000s on either Fox Kids or the Fox Box or what have you, there was some show that was like Transformers, but everyone on every side was a Dinobot. They were all robotic dinosaurs that could turn into... that had robot forms. I'm blanking on the name, but I swear it exists.
And it's proper Transformers, or it's just something like Transformers?
It is not proper Transformers, but it's
okay, so
robots,
it's dinosaurs turning into robots. Okay.
Robot dinosaurs turning into robots.
Okay. Interesting. Not sure. Well,
yeah.
Well, we'll move on for now, but if it comes to us, we'll shout it out.
And Paul Eating is Colonel Roy Campbell in Metal Gear Solid.
Nice.
Yeah.
There we go. Close that loop.
Yeah. No thread left unsewn.
Yeah. So let's talk about the new characters in this, because the old characters all die within 30 minutes of the movie, except for the Dinobots.
And Perceptor.
And Perceptor. It's true. Like there's many that survive, but they just aren't major parts of the story after that point. The Dinobots like remain like huge portions of the story. Like they're with the new cast for the remainder of the movie after that. So that's what I meant by that. But yeah, let's pull the Band-Aid off of Hot Rod. So Hot Rod, voiced by Judd Nelson, he's a character. He's the classic hero's journey character in this, which from just a take a step back writing standpoint, I'm like, this is fine. Objectively, Transformers that have like childlike personas are not new. Bumblebee was like that in the original show, or at least had like a relationship with a human child. And so it was, there's that camaraderie kind of element to it. So Hot Rod as a character there, fine in that regard. He's a bit of a fuck up. Like he's the reason Optimus Prime dies. And then he has a bunch of just like, I believe we can do it kind of moments throughout the whole movie that is supposed to indicate like his eventual rise to leadership.
Oh, he's also the guy who notices, hey, there are Decepticons on that Autobot ship and starts blasting. He nails Starscream from like yards and yards away.
That's true. I'm not saying he's not effective. I'm just saying that like as a character, well, he he screws up a bit, but then he's very much like I'm just desperately trying to avoid using the phrase Mary Sue, but he kind of is. He becomes the leader because he believed the most, but didn't really show off too much before that point of him becoming a good leader. There's the spot where he talks to, or where he brings out the Bob We've Grown on Ninibom line and successfully like placates the Junkers.
Yeah, it's the Junkions.
Wreck-Gar
once they get out of the Quintesson territory.
So that's like a start for him, kind of, but like it's just he's not Optimus Prime. And then when he becomes a Prime character in this, he becomes a camper van.
Yeah,
because he's a dad now.
That's what dads drive. Duh.
Yeah, you gotta get proper storage because you're a dad, and you gotta pack all your things. You're making one trip.
And this is an area where the movie falters because it's set in the 2000s, but is it the 2000s or is it the 1990s?
It is the year 2005.
2005. There we go. But it was but it was made in the 80s, and so their perception of like what the 2000s was going to look like, and admittedly, part of that is that they have Transformers tech to keep them moving. But the coolest new vehicles of the day just don't look at all like what the actual vehicles of 2005 would be. Because if Hot Rod was actually getting upgraded to what a dad car would be in 2005, it'd be like a Ford F-150.
Although I will say, since this movie came out in 86, it had hoverboards before Back to the Future. Daniel's got a nice hoverboard in the opening part.
Oh, yeah. And it makes sense how it works. I was watching how he actually like turns it on and everything. I'm like, oh yeah, that they actually thought about like the mechanics of that. But you mentioned Daniel, so we might as well talk about him, even though he's not a Transformer. So this is Spike Part 2. Because of the time jump, they needed to have a character who was Spike effectively. And so it's Spike's son. And they just shift the generation there by one.
You know he's a different character because he's got a big
very
D on
helpful.
his outfit.
Right. I loved the suit he gets in this. As a kid, I
Yeah,
was
the
like
exosuit.
obsessed. The exosuit's so fucking cool. Especially once he figures out that he can use it to transform. I wanted that so bad as a kid. I don't have that much to say about Daniel. He's like he's a kid character in an 80s TV show adaptation movie. Like he's fine. Like, he's the one who actually spots the hole in the ship, by the way. And then Hot Rod just like looks and confirms it.
Yeah, he's just another tool to kind of be a vehicle for the viewer. He's not really. He's okay. He's just a kid. He's around.
Yeah. I mean, it's arguable that you don't need that sort of viewpoint character anymore because he's not getting that much information from everyone else. Like, they don't write him as if
Yeah, it's
everything
true.
is being explained to this character, because also most of the things they deal with after the first act aren't things that they've ever dealt with before. So it's not like anyone isn't like Hot Rod's as much the viewpoint character. Cup's as much the viewpoint character. You know, it's just that's just how it is.
I feel like there's some exec though that was like, "You gotta have a kid. Where's your kid?"
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just saying that like Spike served a purpose in the original show of being the person that they are introducing the world of the Transformers to. And I'm not saying that they did that like the most, in the most well-written form of all time. I'm just saying that that was part of the role, and they don't do that at all in this movie.
Yeah.
I mentioned Cup, so why don't we talk about Cup? I fucking hate Cup.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from a standpoint of this being a Transformers movie, from the standpoint of this is just a movie, and if it was written in a vacuum, I would be like, yeah, Cup is perfectly fine. It's just so frustrating that Cup is a character who who is one of the new Transformers with the new design to him, the much more like rounded kind of shape to him and everything, when they could have just used literally anyone from the original cast.
Yeah. But then how would they make a new toy?
No, I get it. I get it. Like he's, it again, from a writing standpoint, he's fine, and the performance is fine, and like everything about him is fine. But like how cool would it have been if that was Bumblebee?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
literally any other Transformer, like who's telling the war stories and so forth because they've been through all this.
Yeah, I could see
I don't know.
that.
Like I said, it's just a weird detail with the character. I'm just trying to think what's the next character for us to pivot to. Why don't we go with Ultra
Blur.
Magnus?
Let's talk about Blur.
Oh yeah, we can do Blur. Blur's another one where I was listening to how they wrote him, and like they have him repeat stuff a lot just to make him sound like he's talking really fast, which is sure, it's an effect. He gets a co-starring credit at the opening credits, which I find amazing. Like he's just not that big a character relative to some of the others. Like RC doesn't get a co-star credit.
Well, RC didn't have to deal with the Dinobots. This is like a key moment of the movie. For me.
But I like a speedster. I'm always a fan of that. And
Yeah.
it's
So I watched a video by Chris McFeely, who's like a big Transformers fan who went over the different drafts this movie went through. And apparently, at one point, Blur was supposed to be a Jimmy Stewart type.
a Jimmy Stewart type.
Yeah.
Well, that just sounds like a terrible idea.
I don't have your Energon, Ultra Magnus. It's in RC's house and Springer's house.
Well, that's just a wild situation.
That's insane.
That is so weird. But yeah, no, I mean, Blur's fine. Like, we don't need to go through every single character on this list. It's just sort of like who are some of the interesting ones that are added on. I mean, Blur is certainly like this newer style robot that they are rolling out for the show and by way of the movie. Like, he's got very like smooth lines to him when he's transformed, and when in his robot form, it's much more rounded than the boxy, blocky kind of classic Transformers that we were used to. Ultra Magnus. So, Ultra Mag. I like the idea of a fake out chosen one. I dig that detail overall. He's not very effective as a leader. That said, he never claims that he's effective as a leader. He in fact says that he's not a good leader, then is like forced to be the leader at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to talk about characters we're not super fond of.
Yeah. Oh, go on. Tell me why.
He's basically just a less effective recolor of Optimus, basically.
Yeah.
I get he has his fans, but for this movie, it's just like, I can go into it later.
Yeah, a character who definitely has his fans is Megatron, who gets transformed into Galvatron in this movie. We were talking off mic before it started. I was wondering why the fuck is Leonard Nimoy in this movie? And like, I get it, it's a budget thing. They had the money. Why not stunt cast a character? But like, it's Frank Welker as Megatron. Then it's Leonard Nimoy, who I can barely tell. As a kid, I had no idea there was a voice change. And then in the TV show, it just goes back to being Frank Welker.
Yeah, that is it. Yeah. I don't think there's much of an explanation for that. Because I think maybe they thought it would be different, but it doesn't really sound that much different.
I imagine if this movie were a hit, then they would have shelled out money to keep Leonard Nimoy on full time as Galvatron, but it wasn't, so they just went back to Frank Welker.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, we do have to remember that this movie did bomb. All right, why don't we do the last big character to talk about? And it's the big character for us to talk about, and that's Unicron, Orson Welles' last role. Jesus Christ.
It sounded amazing. It was
apparently that's with a lot of cleanup, because they supposedly could not use his original audio until they did like tons of post-processing.
Ooh, okay. Interesting.
Which I can only imagine. I mean, have you guys ever seen that that wine commercial, like the outtakes that he did like towards the end of his life, where he was just like so wasted, and they ultimately like had a voiceover and just like a shot of him like raising the glass.
Yeah, I've seen clips of that. I've also seen The Critic parody it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about a troubled soul. Also talk about Orson Welles does not get an "and" credit in this one. He's just one of the people in the list at the beginning of the movie.
He's listed under Blur. Is that right?
Blur gets an Blur. Like literally, it's like Leonard Nimoy. It's like, I think it's Cup, and then it's Unicron, and then Blur gets an also starring credit. So it's just like, oh damn, like Orson Welles didn't even have the pull to have like and featuring, or whatever like movie tagline that they use to indicate a high profile star.
Right.
But Unicron, who let's be honest here, is Galactus.
Yeah.
He is.
I mean, it's a devourer of worlds.
And destroy your worlds.
Yeah, and his transformed form looks a lot like Galactus. Like and this is a Marvel production, so it's not like they're not aware of that similarity.
Yeah, they definitely lean in. Like, yeah, just lean into it.
Yeah. Now, the logistics of how I was about to say planet size, but then I'm like, wait, I'm trying to actually think about the scale of Unicron. It's bigger than most planets that he eats. He's certainly larger than that first world that he eats at the beginning of the movie. Yeah. When he goes after Cybertron and he transforms, then he's quite a bit smaller, but then the head is a moon size. So it's the whole Transformers scale thing is like,
and then at the end the Autobots like scale to his pupil.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Like they should be way, way smaller than that. But that's Transformers. Like the scale of a Transformer, especially between their different forms, has never really been like a hard rule. I mean, consider the fact that Perceptor is a microscope and is like a pretty big robot.
Yeah.
And Megatron's a gun.
Megatron is a gun. Yeah. That's why I was cool with Galvatron as a form, because it was like, oh, it's a big tripod cannon. Like that is less of an aggressive size change for the character. You could buy it more. I do prefer the G2 tank Megatron.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that allows it to still feel like Megatron, but at the same time be like not just head scratching in terms of how the logistics of the transformation works.
I actually had that version of Megatron, the tank.
Yeah, the G2.
Yeah.
With like the purple camo. It's like brown with like purple camo patches.
It's like green, black, and purple.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah. I could like picture it in my head.
Classic Marvel villain colors.
Yeah. Anyway, Sam, you mentioned the soundtrack, and you're 100% correct. The soundtrack on this movie is just nothing but bangers.
Such a good soundtrack. It's such a good soundtrack. And honestly, like when I was doing the rewatch, I had forgotten that the Weird Al song was even involved, So like the minute I heard it, was like, wait, that's Weird Al. That is Weird Al. Oh my God, that's Weird Al. Like stopped it, rewound, recorded a clip for a friend of mine, sent it to her. Just so enjoying. And then, like, I was messaging my husband who was not home while I was watching the film, and I was just like, "Did you know Weird Al?" And he was like, "Of course I did. I own the CD of this soundtrack." So I was like, "Of course you do. Of course you do." So yeah, no, it's a great soundtrack. Like honestly, like yeah, the beginning of it is just kind of a lot of fighting over some really rad music. It's basically, yeah, there's a lot of good songs on this soundtrack.
Yeah, some that they have to put in scenes that like don't make sense for like big like hair metal
Yeah.
anthems. Like when Dare comes on the first time, when it's just like Hot Rod and Danny like going up the mountain. It's like that's a big song for like not a huge scene.
It's building up the anticipation. It's what it is, Case.
Sure, I'm just saying that like they have so many bangers that they have to squeeze the bangers into spots that don't even make sense
True.
for bangers.
Yeah.
And of course, we can't talk about the soundtrack without noting You Got the Touch and the weird little bit of trivia, which is that song was then used in Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
And that's where more people are familiar with it.
Mark Wahlberg trying to sing it out.
Yep. And my understanding is it's because Paul Thomas Anderson was just a fan of this movie and like enjoyed the song.
All right, so I knew that Dare and You Got the Touch were a thing, probably because of the Lindsay Ellis video, but I think the first time I became aware of just how good those songs are when set to action scenes is the Dragon Ball Z abridged Bardock Father of Goku special they did.
Yeah, where they use it, yeah.
It's like it starts with Dare and ends with You Got the Touch. It's like, mwah.
Yes. Dragon Ball Z abridged, wonderful stuff. It probably can't watch those ones on YouTube without some sort of sound issue.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the day when that first came out on Blip, man, there was like no rules.
Just like that, I aged 10 years.
Yes. So one thing I love about this movie is the animation. Like it's a little inconsistent because it's 80s animation. Like there's like spots where it's just like clearly less money was put into it. But there are some spots where there is serious hand-drawn animation going on. Like the introductory shot of Unicron when he flies past the camera and you just get like all this deep detail of like this, like the mechanical parts of this like giant world thing. Wonderful detail. And then sometimes it doesn't make any sense. Like when Autobot City transforms and it's like, there's a lot of hand-drawn stuff going on, but like no one took a step back and was like, how does this city actually work? It was just like everything is just transforming all at once.
Yeah.
But visually very cool in that regard, and remains that way through the majority of the movie. Like we get some cool, really good looking set pieces. I mean, obviously there's like the final fight of Optimus Prime is like such a well animated kind of sequence. And just throughout, like the transformation of Galvatron, I think is like just mind blowing considering that was hand drawn.
Yeah. There's some really beautiful things in this. And some sloppy things.
Yeah. Speaking of Galvatron, I know we talked earlier about like design wise. Like I'm not a big fan of the reformatted Decepticons because outside of Galvatron, they all kind of just blur together for me. Galvatron at least has the crown and the arm cannon. He keeps the Megatron arm cannon. The other ones is just like these are all just 5 different purple guys.
Yeah, the reason why I'm less bothered by it is because already the Decepticons had a lot of like palette swaps of each other anyway. There's like all the jets that are all the same basically. But you're completely right. Like the fact that they even bothered to name them is like, why? It's just like, here's your fleet. Like you've got you've got a bunch of attack fighters for you.
Yeah, at least Skywarp and Thundercracker were different colors.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But the movie has a lot of like good designs going into it. Like this is our first viewing of the Quintessons, which is like really cool. I'm not sure if they may have appeared in the comics before it, but talk about nightmare fuel. Just freaky head things rotating around. And what is it? The Sharkticons? They're
Oh, the Sharkticons. They're so weird. There's so many weird, like, also like the whole underwater scene with the robot octopus and the fish under. Those are interesting. There's some very interesting non-science thing happening with shockwaves and electricity, that robot at not conducting to the person sending it out. Yeah, there's some weird stuff going on, but overall, they look cool, but also hideous.
Yeah. So lots of like cool stuff to be introduced in this movie. Also in this movie is what is titled on the DVD chapter selection as "bad word," which is there's a shit bomb dropped.
Yeah, I gotta love the restrictions from TV lifted.
In college, with we got this DVD. I'm not exactly sure when the DVD came out versus when we bought it, but we got the DVD in college and watched it in my fraternity. And I remember when we watched it, so many people were like, "What? Oh my God, did he just say that?"
Blasphemy. You get one curse, right? In a movie.
It's so interesting to see what was deemed as like pushing the envelope back all the way back in the 80s with like kids fare like Transformers. Meanwhile, I read the Skybound comics over the weekend, and they get very gnarly with what they're allowed to do with Transformers, just how brutal it can get.
Yeah, I mean, like, this movie has the reputation for being brutal, but like it's brutal for the context of being part of G1 Transformers. But yes, we should shout out the comics have always been like a really good adaptation of the source material, and the current run that's going on is really good. So people should check those out if you're a Transformers fan and listening to this episode as a result. So I'm wondering, because I feel like we're all sort of like holding off on at this point going deeper into things because we're like sort of like dancing around like pitch territory here. Should we just take our break now and then come back and then start speculating? Because like I my notes are just like weaknesses of the movie and not necessarily fixes. And so it's definitely going to be more collaborative on my end. Does that sound like a plan?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to say one last time that Grimlock is the best in this film. And he's amazing. And he is not a bozo. And he is a king. And I love him so much.
Me Grimlock, me king.
Exactly. I love him so much. And he smashes brains. All things that he said beautifully in this film. He's a poet. Grimlock is a poet.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break and shout out one of the shows on our network. And when we come back, we are going to speculate on what could have been done to make this a stronger movie. So until then, transform and roll out.
Are you tired of watching your beloved characters being tortured by careless authors?
Are you sick of feeling like they could have swapped out all of the painful action and the plot would remain untouched? Subscribe to Books That Burn, the fortnightly book review podcast focusing on fictional depictions of trauma.
We assume that the characters' reactions are reasonable and focus on how badly or well they were served by their authors.
Join us for our minor character spotlights, main character discussions, and favorite non-traumatic things in the dark books we love.
Find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And we are back. I don't have another robot thing to say after that.
We now return
I think
to
it was
another
great.
pass.
Yes, there we go. All right, so why don't we talk about what could actually be done for this movie? And I'm going to say, normally we've got the rule that I can't go before Sam, but I don't have much to say on this one. Aside from my note about like, man, Cup should have just been like a pre-existing character. Like, this is one of those movies where I think you could make it a better movie, but you would lose the appeal. Like the bold choice to kill the entire fucking cast at the beginning of this movie is probably a bad choice from the standpoint of like making a movie, but from a standpoint of making this a cult classic, absolutely not. Like you have to have that scene in there.
Yeah.
So, Nick, you're our guest. You brought this movie. Would you like this? Do you want to give a pitch, or do you want us to like try to work out this together?
I mean, I do have a pitch. It's just like,
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
just basically
let's
going
hear
through. I just basically, like I said, I rewatched the movie earlier last week to just try and strengthen my pitch out. All right, so I think one thing about this movie that may have caused it to bomb at the box office is that it's not very beginner friendly. This
Yes, that
movie
is
very much
super fair.
assumes the movie very much assumes, like Pokemon after it, you are familiar with the brand.
Right.
So
100%.
So also before I forget, real quick, I want to very quickly shout out Linkara from Top of the Fourth Wall, because like his episode on Transformers movie is going to help shape this pitch, or at the very least the end of the pitch. So I just want to make sure I shout that out at the very beginning, because I remember a while ago I pitched. I was working on a pitch for the Star Wars prequels, and I said, I'll shout you out. And I forgot to shout him out, and it's been eating me up ever since. So thank you, Linkara.
Thank you, Linkara, in general. Linkara is an awesome internet personality. I'm a huge fan of his History of Power Rangers series and Atop the Fourth Wall in general. Mm-hmm. But History of Power Rangers is the reason I got back into Power Rangers, which has defined a lot of my like adult nerddom. So yeah, Linkara is awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, and
good shout out.
At the risk of dating when this episode was recorded, happy 800th episodes, Linkara.
I was about to say, like, that's not really a huge concern for us, because, like, I don't mind saying, like, oh, yeah, we recorded on September 15th, 2025, to anyone in the outside world. It is interesting now, because the show is currently monthly. Like, this is going to be quite a while before this drops.
But you know what? The 800 episodes, it's still congratulations on that. So no matter how long after this drops.
800 is impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Like whereas we're at a paltry 183.
That's true.
Which is still impressive.
I was saying before we started recording, like, man, I can't believe we're at 183. And
all right. Anyways, I'm gonna get back to the pitch. So imagine I'm gonna borrow a little bit from future movies and have this movie start out with Optimus Prime giving a brief narration backstory on Transformers, the war on Cybertron, crash landing on Earth, etc., etc. Insert flashbacks to specific episodes of the series to just give like flavor text for newcomers and let fans know this is what to keep in mind when watching the movie. So we got like Wheeljack making the Dinobots, the time Megatron teleported Cybertron into Earth's atmosphere and the ecological damage that caused, and after that, like focus on improving human Transformer relations, like the construction of Autobot City, Spike and Carly growing up, having a kid together, and Daniel, etc., etc. So we flash forward to 2005, and like most of the Autobots are on Cybertron Moonbase 1. Is it Moonbase 1?
Moonbase 1 is where most of them are on, and Moonbase 2 is where Spike and Bumblebee are at when they like call in to like check in with them.
All right, very good. All right, so I imagine movies similar with Optimus laying out like, oh, we don't have enough energon, blah blah blah, and I want to include, instead of just having the conversation between the two moon bases, I want to include Earth on there. So we have Perceptor, Wheeljack, and Cup also talking part of the conversation. I am going to pull back to some of the older drafts where instead of Cup being who he is, his name was Tanker. He was like a tank Autobot, and he had an eye patch. It's like, ooh, I love robots with eye patches. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's cool.
And Case, just pretend this is Ironhide if that eases things for you.
It does. Ironhide, who's always been a minivan for some reason, even though he really should be some sort of aggressive military thing.
All right. So anyway, once the conversation's done, like Prime feels very like winded and talks to Ratchet, the doctor. He was the doctor of the Transformers, right?
Doctor, mechanic, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So Prime confides in Ratchet that he feels envious of the Earth Autobot leader, whether that's Cup or Ironheart, etc. Optimus feels like they have a lot of fight left in them despite being a little long in the tooth, whereas Prime is second-guessing himself nowadays. Prime, even though he's on Moonbase 1, he's felt more close to Cybertron spending 20 years helping build Autobot City than he's spent during millions of years of war. And Ratchet's like, oh, you can always retire. It's like, no, we gotta finish the fight. So fast forward, Megatron kills all the Autobots. Like, since Ironhide is not there, he kills Ratchet, is the one he basically decapitates. Nice little nod to the Marvel comics, where I guess that comes later. After we have the scene where Megatron kills all the Autobots, and because Ironhide's not there, he kills Ratchet instead. We cut to Daniel in Hot Rod on Earth. Like, before the fishing scene, like, have like a little scene like Colossus in Deadpool 1 who is like, hey, Daniel, before we go fishing, make sure you get your breakfast. And it's like, Daniel's got an energy bar, and Hot Rod's got like a cube of Energon, so that way we set up Energon as being important, as like what its function is in the universe, and knowing that's probably going to come back later. Fast forward, we're at the Battle of Autobot City. We focus more on Wheeljack because we already set him up as his role in making the Dinobots being more important. Like, he doesn't die off screen, get an on-screen death, and when Grimlock enters the scene, like, that makes him all the angrier, all the more furious with Devastator. It's like, oh, I'm going to kill you. Fast forward to the Touch. Like, we get the very cool scene of Optimus Prime mowing down Decepticons. I do want to add a bit where it looks like Shockwave or Starscream or whoever is going to snipe Optimus during that. But then Hot Rod comes in, like, driving in, hits a ramp, and then transforms, kicks Shockwave or Starscream in the face, and gives Optimus the thumbs up, and Optimus gives a thumbs up back. So it's like trying to endear the audience more to Hot Rod. Is like, oh, Hot Rod's cool. He's got Optimus's back. Nice. And
nice.
Yeah, and then it's all the more upsetting when he doesn't have Optimus's back when he's trying to deal with Megatron.
Is this different? I mean, he has Optimus's back. He's just bad at it.
Well, the difference here is that we get to see him being good at it, but then he just bites off more than he can chew, thinking he can take on even a weakened Megatron.
Right.
Mm.
That makes sense, yeah.
Right. Like, we get the Optimus's death scene. Well, we'll get to it. It's like, I'm dying, I must pass on the Matrix. Like, here you go, Ironhide. And we still get the scene where he drops it and Hot Rod holds it. It's like, oh, I feel good, but I know this belongs to Ironhide. So Ironhide puts it in, and it actually changes him. He goes from Ironhide to Tanker. Like, again, pulling from the original draft where there was like a character named Magnus, and when he got the Matrix, he turned into Ultra Magnus. By the way, Ultra Magnus is not in my pitch yet. Come back to it later.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed that, but okay.
All right, so we spend more time in more... I admit my pitch is not very Decepticon or Unicron heavy. Just imagine it happens the same as it does in the movie.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we get more time on Earth spent mourning. Like, the Dinobots are mourning the ones they lost, including Wheeljack, and Grimlock really gets up in Hot Rod's face. Like, it's like, first we lose Wheeljack, now we lose Prime because of you. Like, really,
give him some guff. Yeah,
really pull the guilt over on Hot Rod. Completely skipped over the most important part after, because it's so focused on Ironhide becomes Tanker, aka Cup, etc.
Yeah, just back up. Yeah, that's fine.
So Optimus still goes grayscale, but he's not dead. Like, Perceptor is able to keep him on very tenuous life support.
Okay.
Like, we still get the trauma of, like, oh, this is a really sad sight to see Optimus in, and it's like, oh, what do we do? And there is talk, is like, is there any way we can revive Optimus? Like, our Energon reserves are not enough to get someone back from this state of, like, near death. And Ironhide / Tanker is like, well, it's a long shot, but there is a planet in the SETI Alpha system. Like, just pulling that. I don't know. It's basically the Quintesson planet / the Junkion planet. Let's just go to one planet instead of two.
Yeah, it does feel like we're doing the same thing twice.
Yeah, like it can be like a caste system where like the Quintessons rule and the Junkion serfs are just like talk TV. So once Galvatron attacks, another big change is rather than getting into two separate ships, they're still in one ship with like a saucer section and a main body. And there is commotion, like trying to avoid getting blown up by Galvatron. And at some point, there is such damage down in the base ship that Perceptor, the Dinobots, and the slab of Optimus are cut off. So Hot Rod has to make a choice, and he chooses to go back to make sure they all survive. They all get into escape pods and don't get blown up by Galvatron. So at this point, we got three different parties. We've got the team of Tanker, RC, and the other ones on the Junkion section of the planet. We've got Perceptor, the Dinobots, most of the Dinobots, minus Grimlock, and Slab of Optimus on another section. And then we've got Grimlock and Hot Rod in the water. And Grimlock is taking his anchor out on the Robo-Octopus, but it's too much. And much like in the movie, Hot Rod helps patch Grimlock up. And it's like, oh, maybe you not so bad, but don't get in Grimlock way.
I like this dynamic between Grimlock and Hot Rod. That's nice.
Yeah, give Hot Rod something to push up against, like something to challenge him, make him really earn the audience's favor, make him earn the Matrix at the end. After Ironhide becomes Tanker, like either on Earth or on the ship, like Hot Rod asks him for advice, like what's the universal greeting again? So that way Hot Rod knows the best way he thinks of to diffuse any situations, like Grimlock doesn't get into a fight if he doesn't have to. Hot Rod and Grimlock get captured by the Quintesson Patrol and I guess they're Crocticons, because the Sharkticons come later, and the pterodactyl Dinobot is able to see them and makes it back to Perceptor and everyone, but they have their own troubles. Perceptor realizes that the very gruesome executions the Quintessons rule out, because we didn't even talk about that part in the top half. It's like just feeding them to feeding innocent people to the Sharkticons is like, ugh.
Yeah, that was so sad.
But Perceptor realizes that this is how the Quintessons are making like high-grade Energon. Is like, if I can get enough of this Energon, maybe we can bring Optimus back online. And I originally had written that Perceptor makes a heroic sacrifice getting the Energon to help revive Prime. But then I realized, oh wait, my pitch has completely neglected other characters I don't care about, like Wheelie. Like, can we talk about Wheelie for a second?
Yeah, we didn't before because I just blanked on the character because I don't like Wheelie.
Yeah, it's not enough that he's a small guy who rhymes with everything with every sentence he says. He's also got a very annoying voice, like very high pitched, very atonal. And it's like, I don't like it at all. But he can have purpose in this pitch because him being there helps him save Perceptor from otherwise near certain doom. So Perceptor lives, actually. Hooray!
Hooray!
Cut back to Hot Rod and Grimlock. Like, they're fighting the Sharkticons. They're back to back. They're finally gelling with each other. And I imagine when it looks like the Quintessons and the Sharkticons are going to kill them all, like Hot Rod is like, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings, which I realized that was never actually said by Optimus Prime until the first Michael Bay movie, technically. Like, it was said by Optimal Optimus in, like, Season 3 of Beast Wars, but otherwise it's just been relegated to, like, the back of Optimus's toy box, apparently. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting. But basically, in comes the voice going, like, I couldn't have said it better myself. And it's Optimus, who is back online, but barely holding together. Like, he needs to be propped up by the Dinobots and Perceptor. And he gives a big speech to the Sharkticons, is like, rise up against your oppressors, and the Sharkticons listen. And it's like, I guess the problems here will sort themselves out, says Hot Rod. So then we reunite with the Junkions and the other group of Autobots. Tanker has been basically been brutalized by Galvatron and crew, but unlike Starscream's bad comedy, Galvatron actually finds it funny how an old fossil like Tanker is trying to pull up a fight. It's like, this is the first real life I've had all day. I'll let you live so you can see the end of the universe. Because I, again, with my whole dislike of Ultra Magnus, it's like, Optimus dies, but Ultra Magnus gets blown up, but put back together.
Way more damaged. Way more damaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Anyway, yeah, the Junkions are able to patch up, or able to patch up Tanker. They're able to put some red and blue life support casings on Optimus, so like he still needs help moving around, but he can move on his own power. Like Junkions is like, they don't make these parts anymore. So like it's harder to for them to rebuild a Prime. So they need to get the Matrix back from Galvatron. So fast forward, Galvatron and Hot Rod fight is like da. And once Hot Rod gets a hold of the Matrix and becomes Hot Rod, Optimus also starts transforming and the casings become part of his form. And it's like, I'm all better now. And they drive out of Unicron and it's like, yeah, it's like yay, we're all happy and everyone's good. And Rodimus is like, are you okay with this Prime? And Optimus is like, the time for Optimus Prime is over, dead and gone. I am reborn as Ultra Magnus. There we go.
That certainly makes a lot of sense, especially based on the cover and what I assumed when looking at it.
Mm-hmm. And then, a mid-credit scene, Galvatron is floating out in space, and it's like, I'm blown off in space from Unicron's explosion, from the explosion of Unicron. And, well, at least I'm alone by myself. And then Starscream's ghost is there.
You're just doing Dragon Ball Z Abridged at that point.
Yeah, actually I am.
Stupid Ghost of Nappa.
But, it's just basically more just fan service for me. Is like Starscream did become a ghost, and it's like, so why not? And Galvatron does go insane between the movie and season 3, so why not tie them together?
All very fair. All very fair.
Yeah, so that's all I had to say. As far as trying to strengthen character arcs and bring it all together.
Yeah, I think you addressed a lot of the issues that I have with this movie that we didn't really talk about at the start. The fact that it requires you to just know the Transformers. Just know everything about them and go from there is certainly a issue with this movie in terms of bringing on fans, or bringing on new fans, I should say. So I think you address that really well. I think you address the value of Energon really well. It's referenced in this movie, but I don't think we see it in the movie aside from maybe very small increments of Energon. We certainly don't see any big cubes.
The most we get is the little fanny pack of Energon that Cup and Hot Rod try to give to the Sharkticons when they do the universal greeting. And that's it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you address that area really well. I like that you you worked an Ironhide into the role of Cup in this scenario.
I listened to feedback.
Yes, that I think addresses one of my big concerns with this movie. So that's really good. Yeah, I like this all. Yeah, I really like this pitch across the board. I am curious if, well, but no, because you addressed the Ultra Magnus part, or Optimus Prime becoming Ultra Magnus. Yep. So a new toy is there.
Yep. He has healed, and he is going to be more at home, building Cybertron and human relations, and building more cities, and just being a a peacemaker rather than a wartime general. So you get to write him out without writing him out, basically.
Yeah.
You get to write him out without killing him off.
No, I like that a lot. Sam, what are your thoughts?
I like that a lot. I will say that I have zero pitch for this movie because I love it too much. And I know that I used that once for Hercules, and I know Case told me I wasn't allowed to do that ever again.
No, but we're here. We're here now having this situation because I've got nothing.
I'm pulling it again because, here's the thing. I think that this movie is so uniquely product of its time. This is like such a time capsule for me. This is like emblematic of the mess that was animation in the 80s, where some things are so incredibly intricate and amazingly crafted, and then the rest of it just looks like it's slapped together with a wish and some tape, and the soundtrack just slaps. And I know, like, from a writing standpoint, if I actually sat down and really thought about it, I could come up with something like Nick said is absolutely makes more sense, and might have saved some children a little bit of trauma, but that's not what the 80s were about. The 80s were about embracing your trauma and making sure that your kids were traumatized at home, so that when they went out to the real world, they were just already traumatized. And I love it. And I think that Nick's beautiful film that he's just done, his pitch, might be a little too measured for the hair metal and the amazing soundtrack. And I can't lose that. I can't lose any part of this dumb movie because I love it so much. And I have zero pitch. Could I make it better? Sure. Do I want to? Absolutely not. I want this to stay exactly like it is. A confusing music video for the first half, which is just all robot lasers and hair metal bands, and first Weird Al number with the strangest robots on the planet that just do nothing but quote advertising companies, which I absolutely freaking love. I love them. And I want the Dinobots to be exactly who they are. Dumb dummies who want to smash brains. I love them so much. Even though I know the monster that my child is, I love this movie. I have no notes. It's perfect.
Yeah, I'm also coming at this with like, I really like your pitch, Nick. I think you address actually a lot of the concerns that I had, but I didn't have, like, you did it better than I did it all.
Ooh, strong words.
Because I was just thinking about, like, oh hey, the structure's a little bad. Oh hey, I don't like Cup. Oh hey, or rather, I don't like that Cup is a new character. I wish that Cup was an existing character. Oh hey, like, is the death of Optimus Prime necessarily the right choice in this whole situation? How do you get around the toyetic component and so forth? And I really like your, like, having Optimus Prime turn into Ultra Magnus, I think covers like that one big issue. And you still end up with a Rodimus Prime. still end up with a Rodimus Prime, but I like your Hot Rod a lot more. So you've addressed like most of my concerns pretty succinctly without me really having much feedback beyond being like, oh, bravo.
All right. Is there anything I didn't address? Yeah, let's work this out in real time.
Yeah, let's talk this out. So I think Unicron is fine as is. Like, I don't think there really needs to be much change to Unicron besides maybe like paying attention to the scale of Unicron a little bit better. But that's just a Transformers problem, and we've talked about that one before.
Like, you could, like, with my idea of Optimus giving out narration, you could include a part like, but even though Decepticon and Autobot war rages on, I fear something even more. What was the line Obi-Wan said in Phantom Menace? It's like something elsewhere, elusive, or like that basically. Yeah. Like, Optimus Prime feels that, because I don't know if we want to put more lore in this movie, and it's like, let's talk about Primus. And it's like, maybe that's a bit too much.
Right. And I don't know how much lore they had actually figured out at this point when they were introducing Unicron. Like, Unicron as a character has been like reconceived as sort of like the devil, basically, in Transformers lore. Whereas in this movie, he's basically just Galactus. And it's not a huge leap from Galactus to the devil, but he's just Galactus in this movie. Right down to giving people the power cosmic. No, I think we are pretty solid on all of this. I mean, I'm like, even the Starscream Ghost, I enjoy rather as a sign off piece right there. Now that's a more comedic version of this movie than I think anyone would actually go for, because I can't imagine a version where it's not played for some kind of a joke, and it's a little bit more of a comedy than this movie is. But aside from that, I think you did a really good job kind of hitting all the areas while keeping it the cult classic nature of this movie. I mean, I think that Optimus dying is part of why it's such a cult classic, and it would be difficult to lose that without removing some percentage of that detail. But I think you're still getting most of it, and you're still addressing, I mean, we're still getting like a huge amount of the cast dead. We're still getting Optimus Prime wounded and going grayscale. So you still get the same scene.
Yeah,
it's
still keeping the striking imagery.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you address it really well. I'm not positive that without Optimus dying, it would have the same cachet, but that's a minor detail, considering that I think that the rest of it is pretty well nailed.
Yeah, and also part of trying to smooth everything out is like, hopefully we get a season 3 that doesn't end with saying Optimus Prime was a huge mistake on our part, and we should have just kept Optimus around. Like, hopefully this avoids that going into the future, and the character doesn't have that stink attached to them.
Oh, poor Rodimus. Yeah, no, I really like this. Dope. Is there anything we haven't talked about with the Transformers movie?
RC, we've not talked about RC.
I mentioned her, but that's true. We haven't really talked about her. I mean, aside from that, we get a regularly occurring female character in this movie. I don't have a ton to say about her. She's effective.
Yeah.
Eric Idle as Wreck-Gar.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's a stunt casting right there. What's the helicopter's name? I always forget his. Springer. So I was watching it and I was like thinking about, like, Springer's just like a knight in this. Like, he's such not a character that I can barely remember his name, but he's a very effective, like, he's in your corner and you recognize him, and he's got a sword.
Yeah, I was really struggling with not just calling him the green one.
Right, exactly. Like,
yeah.
Because there's so many fucking Transformers that it's difficult to keep them straight. And like, you can keep them visually straight, but like there's just a lot of them. But I was thinking about him in this one because he's another introduced character that is, slightly newer design but doesn't stick out as aggressively. He's just there in a way that I think really works.
Yeah, when I was originally working on my pitch, I was like, oh, let's have Springer take up the Ultra Magnus role. I was like, no, wait. Like, why not do Cup? I like Cup more.
Yeah.
Going back to that Chris McFeely video, apparently Springer, as the script was being more and more refined, Springer got more of a, quote, Indiana Jones personality type as the writing went on, whereas originally he was basically an Arnold clone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The Springer.
I mean, I guess I can see it as being an 80s action hero kind of character. But yeah, like I said, he's just like comes off as like just a good soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sam, is there anything that we haven't addressed that you wanted to bring up about the Transformers movie?
No, but I just like shout out to like Starscream for just being a general jerk and being consistently a jerk. I just really appreciated him throwing and really enjoying throwing Megatron off a ship. That's just like just a moment that I generally enjoyed. Like I on my rewatch, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot what a jerk this character is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like to...
he's delightful.
I'd like to apologize real quick for this podcast being very dismissive of the Decepticons. Because, like, when the classics are on screen, they're great. Like, with Starscream, like, kicking Megatron when he's lying dead on the ground and he needs to be carried.
Yeah.
Soundwave, my boy Soundwave, like, opting to help carry Megatron to Astro Train. Soundwave superior, Constructicons inferior. Lots of good stuff from them.
Yeah.
And they disappear once the new ones come in.
I know, which is definitely something that is bad about the film. Oh, I finally found one thing that I didn't like because it just like I think also they showed so much like the difference between like the Decepticons and the Autobots, right? Like because they're willing to kick each other when they're down. They're willing to like kind of take over and kind of turn on each other, which the Autobots wouldn't do. But yeah, just shout out to Starscream because he's hilarious. So that's it.
Yeah, Starscream's great. It is well past time that he dies when he is actually killed.
Yeah, for sure.
The fact that he had made it that far, he's a great character. I'm just saying that like Megatron should have killed him long ago.
Yeah, I had originally...
You definitely had it coming.
Yes.
Like in my head, after he gets turned to dust by Galvatron's cannon, I just imagine Galvatron taking him by the head and crushing it. And like that, maybe that's how he gets his spark on him. Who knows?
That works.
Or maybe Galvatron's just going insane. Because he's cut off from Unicron.
That also makes sense for the character, and then makes sense for like how the character goes as further stuff develops.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, Nick, thank you for bringing this pitch. It's a really solid pitch. I'm sorry that we don't have more to feed back. We're just like children of the 80s and having a hard time with this one.
Nick, thank you so much for making me rewatch this film. I haven't watched it in like it's been a while. I think the last time I watched it, I was with my friend Vash, and we were making costumes for Comic-Con, and it was just like on in the background, and I was like hoping like glue something onto a belt, and we were watching this film, and I haven't watched it since then. So it's been a good 10 years, and so I'm really glad that I got to watch it, even though I added no pitch value to this. Yeah, thank you for bringing it anyway.
You need new blood to bring in new ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's why the show isn't just me and Sam. That's why we always have a guest.
Yeah.
Again, I bring the Beast Wars first energy to it. I bring in the show that did have the character who did die and did come back alive, but then died again, and it was good both times.
Dinobot.
Dinobot.
Truly great. Yeah, no, if we wanted to talk about, for one thing, I'm going to shout out this part. We did an episode on Beast Wars on Men of Steel, just because it's my goddamn show, and I wanted to talk about Optimus Primal, and that was a lot of fun just to revisit Beast Wars. So if anyone is enjoying this Transformers conversation and wants it to be more Beast Wars centric, go check that episode out. It was like last year, so it's not like that long ago. Maybe 2 years ago now. Been a minute, but not that long. So Nick, thank you for coming on. For people who tuned in, and where can people find you and follow you? What have you got going on?
Well, like I said, I'm frequent collaborator and frequent lurker and contributor of the Certain Point of View Media Discord. And sometimes I'm up around on Reddit on u/MYCKOUNT, and that's it. I've been reduced to just lurking about and making my streak go higher. I'm up to 400 days now. You can't stop me.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Gamifying is the worst thing to happen to social media. Please send help.
That is true. And social media is the worst thing that's happened to us in general. No, but thank you for coming on. Sam, where can people find you and follow you?
Well, I am very, very busy trying to learn other robot languages so I can greet everyone in the universe and maybe ride in a very cool Transformer someday, or make best friends with Grimlock. I haven't decided. I'm searching for him. Maybe, although I will be worried that he will smash my brains because that's what he loves to do so much. But if you have any complaints, although I don't know, I don't think I said anything today that anyone would have complaints about. If you should find any complaints about anything I said about loving this film, you can complain to Case at...
Well, you can find me on most social platforms at Case Aiken. The Discord server, as Nick pointed out, is a great place to contact us. Sam's on it, and if you tag her, she'll respond. Sometimes.
Maybe.
Generally speaking, she'll respond. But the Discord server is a great place, or most socials, it's at Case Aiken, with the exception of Instagram, where I'm holding on to my AIM screen name from high school for dear life, which is Quetzalcoatl5, QUETZALCOATL5, because I was pretentious in high school too. And yeah, those are great places to find us. Sam, one thing we haven't talked about, but you kind of alluded to this already, is how does this fit on your chores scale?
Oh, well, yes, this movie is great for chores, especially because it's got a great soundtrack. So no matter what, if you're like washing dishes in the other room, it doesn't matter because you can do it during a battle scene. You're not going to miss anything too crazy, right? Also, if you've seen it a million times, you don't really need to follow the plot that closely because this soundtrack just slaps. So this can be on in your house like 24/7 and you'd be totally happy. Folding laundry, doing crafts, all that stuff. This is a great, great film for all sorts of chores. If it is on, just let it rock.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I love it.
That is quite the high praise from Sam Alisea.
Yeah. This is like, honestly, this would be like my go-to for like just like having in the background while you're doing stuff. Great.
That's a solid one. Also, we have high praise for the people who support this show because we have a Patreon going now. It is a wonderful service that has allowed for us to get a little bit of support from our fans. And we have so many fans that we have to shout out, specifically those who have joined at the executive producer level. And so I want to thank the following people, which is Micah McCaw, Carter Hallett, Sean Muir, Lee Greger, Memento Young, Logan Crowley, Joe Mastropiero, Casey and Nancy Aiken, Adam Samter, and Keith Lettinen. So if you want to support the show, you can join at the paid tiers like these people all have. We have all kinds of promotional material that we're putting out. We're doing advanced clips of the episodes. We are doing early videos in some cases. And then even if you join at the free tier, you can get many of the bonuses that we're putting out, such as essays that I'm writing every week. I'm doing one every Monday that is on just a random nerd topic, and one every Tuesday that's on a D&D related topic. So check those out. At the time of this recording, I just did a massive essay entitled Never Go Full Ranger, which is my thesis that you should never take Ranger to level 20 in D&D because it's a terrible choice. And I go into a whole rant about why almost any single class dip besides going Ranger 20 is a better choice than going Ranger 20. So that one is a worthwhile essay to check out. But there's all kinds of stuff at the Certain POV Media Patreon. And you can find that at patreon.com/certainpovmedia. Otherwise, you can check us out on all the podcast platforms. You can check us out on YouTube on the Certain POV Media YouTube channel. So check that out. And otherwise, you should check out some of the great shows on Certain POV. Right now, I'm going to shout out a new show that we just launched, and that is Trade School. This is a show that is sort of the sibling series to Side Quests, which is a format where a guest host just talks about a video game for 5 to 15 minutes. Trade School is that, but for comic books. So if you have a comic book that you have a strong feeling about, particularly a trade paperback, then please talk to me because we would love to get your thoughts. It's just a guest host comes on, talks about a comic book they love for 5 to 15 minutes and explains why someone should read it. And it's a really cool project about generating positivity in the comic book space. So I really want to shout that out and recommend people to check that out. But otherwise, Sam, what have we got coming up next time on this show?
Next time, we'll be talking about Highlander 2: The Quickening. But until then, if you enjoyed this, pass it on.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View's Another Pass podcast. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe and review the show on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com.
Another Pass is a Certain POV production. Our hosts are Sam Alisea and Case Aiken. The show is edited by Sophia Ricciardi. Our logo and episode art is by Case Aiken. Our intro theme is by Vin Macri, and our outro theme is by Matt Brogan.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.